Normally I just talk about shows I found that were interesting, but I kind of wanted to do something different for this one. So Peppa Pig premiered on Cartoon Network originally in about 2005 on Tickle U, or Tickle U premiered in 2005 at least. And basically, when Cartoon Network got the rights to Peppa Pig and other English shows, instead of doing how Peppa Pig is very famously English in America, and, you know, in most places that speak English, it's obviously dubbed in other countries, they decided to dub it with American voices.
Daddy, can we help you find your glasses?
And they did that for other British shows, including Little Robots and Gordon the Garden Gnome. Little Robots and Gordon the Garden Gnome didn't get the second life that Peppa Pig got in the 2010s on Nick Jr. when they decided to release the original English dubs of Peppa Pig. Most of the American dubs of all these shows have been completely lost, according to sources which didn't sound like that final to me, frankly. Or like official, but supposedly all these tapes of the American dubs have been lost and we can't find them at all. And the only thing we have is a little like kind of advertisement where we hear what Peppa sound like.
There they are! Daddy's glasses! Silly Daddy.
Peppa Pig, part of Tickle You. Weekdays from 9 to 11 on Cartoon Network.
It's interesting that Cartoon Network, out of everyone, and they're pretty like into animation history, and that like part of one of the Tickle You shows was actually Gerald McBoing Boing, which if you don't know is based on one of the most famous cartoon shorts of all time from UPA. But Peppa Pig had its American debut in this like weird kind of American voice, and it seemed like a weird thing. Like, why would you want to dub Peppa Pig with an American voice? But sometimes they do that with Secret World of Arietti. They made an American dub and an English dub. But unfortunately, all these English shows that had American dubs, Little Robots, Gordon the Garden Gnome, we can't find, no one has any of that. And Peppa Pig, all we have is this one advertisement and part of a game where you can hear Peppa's parents have their American voices. That's it. All of it is completely lost. But it's weird that Cartoon Network did that. Tickle You was kind of a huge disaster. A lot of parents groups were completely against Tickle You because they said, oh, well, it won't educate kids, but it'll show them to have a good sense of humor. Which, by the way, Nick Jr. doesn't really educate kids either, I gotta say. They have these things like, oh, Sunny Day shows you, you know, entrepreneurship and like doing haircuts or whatever. And like really like lame things. Just same with like Disney Junior, all that stuff. They don't, other than Sesame Street, none of these shows teach your kids anything. It's just that Cartoon Network had the audacity to say like, well, we can't really do that with Cartoon Network, but maybe kids will laugh. And everyone got upset, which I find to be a little funny. Each of these shows on Tickle You were only 15 minutes. You wouldn't get like how you get Peppa Pig now, where you get a whole half hour. You just get about 15 minutes of Peppa Pig in American dub. So there's probably isn't a ton of it. Supposedly these tapes are lost probably because they lost the rights, and they're probably like, just throw this crap out, who cares? If anyone has a whole episode, I would love to hear it, because that just sounds bizarre. Like, why would you want to dub it in American? That happens in other languages as well. They want certain particular dialects. You know, they do that a lot in Spanish. They do that a lot in other languages as well, that they think it'll play better in different regions for a certain way you say separate things. It'd be like if we redubbed something in America with a southern accent. Frankly, I think it'd be a little stupid. But I don't really get why you'd want to do this to Peppa Pig, and obviously Peppa Pig did not take off under Tickle You. It took off under Nick Jr., under its English accent, and actually kids now apparently get English accents from watching too much Peppa Pig. My daughter didn't, but despite my wife being English, Sophie does have particular phrases she says that have an English accent, but she didn't get that from Peppa Pig, interestingly enough, if you didn't know my wife is English. But it's kind of an interesting lost media, because it's sort of like how Cartoon Network totally failed at Tickle You, and they had one of the biggest massive hits of children's entertainment in the last 10 years they had, and they managed to screw up. I think oftentimes we talk about Nickelodeon screwed up chances. I think this is one of the times Cartoon Network completely dropped the ball and lost out on probably one of the more massive hits of kids entertainment, and Nick Jr. was there to just sort of pick it up and actually do less work by just going like, hey, hand me the tapes, let me just put this on the air on Nick Jr. Because since it was already such a hit in England. So it's kind of interesting that Cartoon Network came up with such a bizarre way to release Peppa Pig, but I don't think they really knew. I think they thought it would work. But if you really think about it, so much of Peppa Pig's identity is that English accent, and robbing it of that, I think, was probably a pretty bad idea in general. As well as Tickle You, which ended in January 2007, and then Peppa Pig premiered on Nick Jr. on February 5th, 2011. So, but unfortunately, all of the American dub is lost, other than that one ad and a part of a game, and that's all we have of anything of the kind of Tickle You American dubs of British shows, which was probably a big mistake. So it's probably good for Cartoon Network that we can't find any of this, and this is unfortunately a forgotten footnote in probably one of the biggest franchises in children's entertainment.